In the quiet hours before dawn, when the humid air of the South American wetlands hangs thick and still, the world seems to pause. The only movement comes from the gentle ripple of water brushing against muddy banks. A soft mist drifts low across the river like a blanket, blurring the boundary between water and sky. Somewhere in that peaceful haze, faint shapes begin to stir. A nose twitches above the surface. Round, whiskered, curious. A capybara, and then, as if the river itself exhales, more appear. One by one, ears, snouts, the tips of dark brown heads breaking the water's mirror-like surface. A full family, just waking. They rise not with urgency, but with the unhurried calm that defines them. Capybaras have no need to rush. Time bends around them, like reeds parting in the water. They blink slowly, chew gently, breathe quietly. The day begins not with a dramatic leap or frantic scramble, but with a barely audible sigh. The capybara is the world's largest rodent, though you would never know from its elegant composure. Adults can weigh more than 60 kilograms, nearly the size of a Labrador retriever. Yet everything about them radiates serenity. Their bodies are barrel-shaped, built not for speed, but for floating, effortless and buoyant. Their fur glistens with droplets of morning dew, each bead catching the first hint of sunrise. The wetlands are their kingdom, slow rivers, marshy grasslands, shallow lakes where land melts into water. Here they are perfectly at home, half creature of earth and half creature of river. Their eyes, ears and nostrils are perched high on their heads, like the periscope of a submarine, allowing them to see, breathe and listen while remaining almost entirely submerged. They can stay underwater for several minutes at a time, slipping beneath the surface like a drifting log, seemingly weightless. Life is gentle here, at least for now. The leader of the group, an older male, stands chest deep in the river. His name is a reminder of his appearance more than anything else. He is simply called Old River. Capybaras don't name each other, of course. But if they did, this one would be known by the water that embraces him. His fur, once rich and auburn, is beginning to grey on the muzzle. It tells a story of many seasons survived and many floods endured. He surveys the bank with wise, unhurried eyes. Around him, the younger capybaras nuzzle one another sleepily. Capybaras are intensely social animals, living in groups of as many as 50. They do nearly everything together, swimming, resting, grooming, and even falling asleep, piled against one another like oversized teddy bears. Touch is their language. Comfort is their culture. A young pup squeaks, a tiny, melodic sound, and nudges against its mother. Capybara pups are born fully furred, able to walk within hours. They will eat grass almost immediately, and yet they will still nurse for weeks. Family bonds run deep. Aunts, older siblings, even unrelated adults will help raise the young. Everyone participates in the slow and steady act of simply being. The sun finally crests the horizon, turning the river gold. The day begins. Old River leads the group to shore. Their wide, webbed feet press into the mud, each step slow and intentional. They wade through tall grass, dew brushing against their bellies. The scent of damp vegetation fills the air. For capybaras, every morning is a breakfast buffet, an endless supply of fresh greens. They do not hurry, they graze. Their teeth never stop growing, a necessity for animals who spend most of their lives chewing. Their powerful molars grind down coarse grasses, like natural lawnmowers gently trimming the landscape. And they do so with a composure that suggests that eating is not just a need, but a meditative ritual. Every bite is slow. Every motion is deliberate. If the world could learn relaxation from any animal, it would be the capybara. Nearby, a kingfisher darts past the water's surface, wings flashing blue and white. A caiman, distant, uninterested, basks on a log. The capybaras remain calm. They know the river's moods. They have coexisted with predators for thousands of years. Their best defense is not speed, it is awareness and stillness. They do not waste energy on fear. Their ears swivel gently, listening to the distant trill of insects hidden in the reeds. Their nostrils lift toward the breeze. Information flows through them like water through grass. Noticed, acknowledged, released. The morning stretches forward. A juvenile capybara nudges old river, playful and insistent. She wants to explore. She wants to chase butterflies and jump into puddles and race through the reeds. She flicks her ears, waiting for permission. Old river gives a slow blink. That is enough. She's off. Splashing into shallow marsh water as droplets scatter like tiny diamonds thrown into the air. Her siblings follow. Soon, the marsh erupts into a symphony of soft splashes and tiny squeaks. Capybara pups play, not with urgency, but with gentle delight, like children discovering that happiness does not need to be loud to be felt. Capybaras are prey animals, but they rarely show stress. Studies suggest their heart rates remain remarkably low, even in unpredictable environments. The world moves quickly around them, but they refuse to let it pull them into chaos. They live peacefully, intentionally, mindfully. As the sun climbs higher, heat gathers in the air. The morning coolness fades. Dragonflies skim across the river's surface. A sudden chorus of cicadas erupts from the trees like nature's applause. It is time to return to the water. Capybaras love water the way birds love the sky. It is their refuge, their playground, their sanctuary. They slip in one by one, the mud giving way beneath their weight. The moment their bodies enter the water, their muscles soften. Their movements become fluid, effortless. They float with only their noses visible above the surface, like islands of calm drifting through an endless sea. Water cools their bodies. Water hides them from predators. Water holds them. Old River settles into a patch of floating plants, letting the slow current carry him. His eyes droop half-closed. The river is a cradle, rocking him gently. A nap here is not just rest, it is surrender. Capybaras take many short naps each day, never fully unconscious, always aware of the world. They rest in cycles, drifting between alertness and dreams. Birds perch upon their backs, sometimes small herons, sometimes even ducks, finding safe passage on the steady raft of fur. The capybaras accept them, offering support with unspoken, effortless generosity. Symbiosis not by necessity, but by quiet understanding. Nearby, a pup tries to imitate Old River, floating stiffly, legs splayed awkwardly. She tips sideways and momentarily disappears underwater, only to pop back up again with a tiny snort of surprise. The adults do not react. They are patient. They have all learned through gentle trial and error. A breeze sweeps across the river. The wetlands shimmer. Time slows. Hours pass in a steady rhythm of grazing, swimming, resting, grazing again. For capybaras, life is not measured in accomplishments or milestones. It is measured in moments of comfort and connection, moments spent together. In the afternoon, the heat peaks. The group gathers beneath a cluster of trees, their bodies forming a patchwork of warm fur pressed together. Capybaras practice a behavior called social grooming, gently nibbling each other's fur to remove insects and strengthen bonds. The sound is subtle, rhythmic, a quiet reminder that connection, even silent connection, is a form of love. Old River closes his eyes. He is surrounded by family, water, safety. He needs nothing more. In a world that teaches urgency, capybaras teach presence. They do not worry about the future. They do not cling to the past. They exist only in the gentle certainty of now. The late afternoon sunlight softens into a golden haze. Shadows stretch across the wetlands, long and thin, like brushstrokes on canvas. The world begins to cool, and with it, the capybaras stir from their restful pile beneath the trees. One pup yawns, revealing tiny square teeth. Another scratches an itch by rubbing its cheek against a smooth rock polished by years of flowing water. The air feels different now, less heavy, more alive. Evening is when the wetlands awaken. The scent of wild mint lingers near the water's edge. Insects buzz softly among the reeds, weaving invisible patterns through the air. A distant splash echoes from somewhere upstream, a fish leaping toward a fleeting insect. The capybaras listen, not with fear, but with awareness. They process the sound without tension. They allow the world to be what it is. Old River rises slowly, stretching his legs one at a time. His joints crack faintly, a reminder of seasons past. Age has not slowed him, but it has taught him efficiency. Every movement is minimal, every choice intentional. He nudges the group toward open grassland. Despite their heavy, rounded appearance, capybaras can run surprisingly fast when needed, faster than a horse over short distances. But urgency is rare. They prefer not to break the stillness of the world unless truly necessary. For capybaras, energy is sacred. In the tall grass, a curious caracara watches from the branch of a dead tree. Its sharp eyes follow the family as they graze in the fading light. It is searching for opportunity, not conflict. Capybaras are too large to be prey, but the bird knows that where capybaras walk, insects scatter. Even predators benefit from the gentle movements of these quiet giants. The pups explore nearby, discovering the world blade by blade. One finds a patch of clover and chews it loudly. A crisp, steady crunch that seems magnified in the still evening air. Another pup wanders toward the water again, chasing the reflection of its own shadow, unaware that it cannot be caught. Life is discovery, one small adventure at a time. As the family grazes, a soft hum begins, not from insects, but from within the group itself. Capybaras communicate in an array of sounds. Gentle barks, low rumbles, melodic whistles. Their voices are soft, rarely raised. Tonight they purr. A low, vibrating sound, like a cat, but deeper. They purr when content, when relaxed, when surrounded by those they trust. It is the sound of safety. Across the wetlands, the day gives its final sigh. The sky shifts through shades of amber, then rose, then deepening blue. The first star appears, faint and tentative. Night begins its slow descent. Capybaras come alive again. Nocturnal animals stir from hiding. Armadillos shuffle through the underbrush, and tiny frogs begin to chirp. Fireflies emerge like sparks drifting on invisible threads, their flickers reflecting across the water surface. The wetlands transform into a mosaic of light and shadow, movement, and stillness. Capybaras step quietly into the shallows once more. With the cooling night air, they swim not out of necessity, but of joy. Their strokes are smooth, rhythmic, graceful. Water wraps around them like a comforting embrace. A pup attempts to climb onto Old River's back, slipping halfway but finding purchase. The elder Capybara remains still, lending his body without protest. He has done this many times before. Responsibility comes naturally to him. The moon rises, pale and round, casting a silvery glow over the rippling water. Bats swoop low, skimming the surface for insects. Somewhere in the dark, a capybara whistles softly, calling to a sibling who strayed a little too far. The answer comes immediately, a short chirp of reassurance. Capybaras rarely lose track of each other. Their world is woven together by constant communication, a gentle thread that ensures no one is ever truly alone. They swim side by side, forming a cluster of drifting shapes beneath the moonlight. Eventually, they reach a low island of reeds. The water around it is calm, protected from current and wind. Here, they will rest again, a second nap in a day made of naps. Capybaras sleep lightly, always attuned to sound. They do not build nests. They do not dig burrows. They simply find comfort where comfort finds them. On the island, they settle into a soft pile. Heads rest on backs. Legs stretch into the grass. The pups tuck themselves into the warm spaces between adults, where the world feels safest. Old River remains half awake, eyes nearly closed but ears alert. His mind lingers somewhere between vigilance and peace, a careful balance. One by one, the sounds of the wetlands fade into distant whispers. A caiman slides silently through the water several meters away. Its presence is quiet, unimposing, yet the capybaras feel it. Old River gently lifts his head, giving a soft rumble that vibrates through the group. Not fear, simply awareness. The caiman pauses. In this moment, no one needs to move. The two species have shared these waters long enough to understand each other. Danger is real, but panic is optional. After a moment, the caiman drifts away into deeper water, uninterested. Old River settles back down. The night grows deep and full. Some hours later, the sky lightens again. A faint gradient of pastel blue appears along the horizon. Dawn approaches, silent and steady. The world prepares for the cycle to begin anew. As the first light touches the water, the capybaras wake fully. They stretch, slow limbs, soft yawns, like furry sunbathers ready to receive the morning. The pups blink sleep from their eyes. Moisture glistens on their fur, tiny droplets reflecting the growing light. A pair of scarlet ibis take flight nearby, wings glowing crimson in the sun's early rays. Each beat sends ripples of color across the wetland surface. The capybaras watch, mesmerized by the effortless rhythm of the bird's flight. Their world is full of motion, yet they remain the anchor of calm. The day begins again. Grass softens beneath their steps. Mud squelches gently beneath wide feet. Breakfast awaits, endless fields of green stretching toward the riverbank. Capybaras do not need variety. They eat what the earth provides. Grasses, reeds, water plants. Their stomachs, like those of cows, ferment plant material, extracting every bit of energy slowly, efficiently. Their bodies are designed for patience. They are content with simplicity. As they graze, several cattle approach from a nearby farm. Large, slow-moving, equally unhurried. The two species recognize something of themselves in one another. Cattle graze, capybaras graze. Neither disturbs the other. On farms across South America, capybaras often live alongside livestock, sharing land, resources, and occasionally companionship. A cow nudges a capybara gently, and the capybara responds with a soft melodic whistle. Even among different species, connection finds a way. Far in the distance, storm clouds gather. The rainy season approaches, a time of rising waters and transformation. The wetlands swell each year with the seasonal floods, creating new streams, new pools, new islands. But capybaras adapt effortlessly. Their bodies are built for water. Where other animals retreat from flooding, capybaras embrace it. The world expands for them. But today, the storm is still far away. The breeze is warm, carrying the scent of distant rain, but delivering only comfort for now. The pups follow Old River, who nibbles on water hyacinths near the riverbank. Water beads on his fur like tiny pearls. His whiskers twitch as he chews. A butterfly lands briefly on his head, dancing gently before taking flight again. He does not react. Stillness is his superpower. A sudden splash interrupts the quiet. One of the pups has slipped into the water again, intentionally this time, and paddles in circles. Water sprays around her, catching the sunlight. She squeaks in delight. Another joins her, then another. Soon, the river becomes a playground. Capybaras rarely play rough. Their games are gentle, chasing, splashing, floating. Their joy is soft, subtle, contagious. Even the adults watch with what might be mistaken for amusement. Old River slides into the water, positioning himself nearby, not to control their play, but to ensure they feel safe enough to be fearless. Parents do not protect by restricting, they protect by being present. In the still water, the pups try diving, awkwardly, legs flailing, but they resurface with triumph, as though they have discovered something new about themselves. With each attempt, they become more graceful. Over time, they will learn the capybara's greatest talent, the art of floating through life without resistance. The sun climbs once more, high and hot. Cicadas sing again. The cycle continues, as it always has. But something shifts. Old River pauses mid-chew. His ears angle toward the reeds. The pups notice and freeze. Even in calmness, capybaras communicate alertness without panic. From the tall grass, a jaguar watches. Its coat blends perfectly into the dappled shadows. The muscles in its shoulders ripple like coiled power. Jaguars are among the strongest predators in the Americas, capable of crushing bone with a single bite. It moves silently, each step deliberate. The wetlands hold their breath. Old River remains still. He does not flee, because fleeing invites a chase. His stillness is a shield, a silent message. We see you. The jaguar lowers itself inch by inch. The distance closes. Old River gives a soft, almost imperceptible bark, a single note, barely above a whisper. The pups move into the water. Not a splash, not a panic, just quiet motion. The adults follow, forming a barrier between the pups and the land. In water, they are confident, strong swimmers. Jaguars can swim too, but rarely pursue prey that slips beyond the advantage of land. For a tense moment, predator and prey lock eyes. Then, the jaguar shifts direction, uninterested in the effort. It vanishes back into the grass, absorbed once more by the landscape. Old River relaxes. There is no triumph, no celebration, only the return to grazing. Capybaras do not cling to fear. They let it flow through them, like water through reeds. The pups climb onto their elders' backs again, settling in the warm sun. The water glitters around them. The world returns to its gentle rhythm. Later, as the air cools once more and the horizon fades to lavender, the capybaras gather together in their familiar pile of bodies, warm fur pressed against warm fur. Old River closes his eyes. The river murmurs. Crickets sing softly. And the world slows to the pace of their breathing, steady, calm, present. For the capybaras, there is no tomorrow. There is only now. The night moves like a slow river, unhurried and full. Above the wetlands, clouds drift lazily across a moonlit sky. Somewhere in the distance, frogs begin their nightly chorus, filling the air with a soft rhythm. The capybaras rest in their familiar cluster, breathing in unison, their bodies gently rising and falling. Old River shifts slightly, adjusting the position of a pup that has curled up against his side. The young one sighs and presses closer. Safety, for capybaras, is not a place. It is a feeling, the warmth of others beside you. As the moon continues its path across the sky, the air cools. Dew gathers on the tall grass, weighing down the blades until they bow. The wetland is quiet except for the breeze, which moves through the reeds with a whisper like distant rain. Slowly, a new sound blends with it, soft hoots. A pair of owls glide silently between the trees. Their feathers are designed to muffle sound, giving them the ability to fly without disturbing even the slightest ripple of the still night air. The capybaras watch, eyes half open, but they remain calm. The owls are hunting insects, not interested in them. Stillness returns, hours pass, but time is irrelevant to a creature that lives entirely in the present. When the first suggestion of dawn paints the horizon with pale lavender, Old River stirs. He is always the first to wake, not out of obligation, but instinct. He lifts his head and listens. Capybaras have excellent hearing. Even the faintest change in the environment does not go unnoticed. He senses the shift before he sees it. The river is fuller. During the night, rain has fallen far upstream, and now that distant water flows toward the wetlands, raising the level inch by inch. Capybaras do not fear this change. They welcome it. The rising waters bring new plants, new paths, new places to explore. Slowly, he stands, his wet fur glistening in the soft dawn light. The pups blink awake, stretching tiny legs, yawning wide. The adults rise too, some reluctantly, savoring the remnants of sleep. Morning begins again, not with urgency, but with quiet routine. They move toward a patch of fresh grass along the riverbank. The scent is strong and sweet. New growth always carries the richest aroma. The pups trot ahead, eager. Their short legs move with surprising agility. One missteps and slips into the shallow water, but instead of struggling, the pup simply floats, letting the river carry it a short distance before paddling back to shore. Floating is not a skill they learn. It is something they already know. Old River grazes slowly, his breath steady. Each bite is purposeful. To a capybara, eating is not just nourishment. It is the rhythm of their lives. They spend more than 6 hours a day grazing, trimming the grass like gardeners of the wetlands. Nearby, a younger female pauses and lifts her head. Her ears twitch, listening. Her nose rises, smelling. Then she relaxes and lowers her head again. Nothing is wrong. She was simply curious. Curiosity without anxiety awareness without fear. A young capybara finishes grazing and settles down to chew slowly, grinding the grass into a soft pulp. Capybaras practice regurgitation fermentation, similar to cows. They chew, swallow, digest, and sometimes chew again. This process extracts every nutrient and is incredibly efficient. Patience fuels their bodies. From a nearby grove of palms, a group of howler monkeys begins calling. Their deep voices resonate across the wetlands like rolling thunder. The sound is both powerful and strangely soothing, a reminder that the forest is awake as well. The pups pause, staring wide-eyed in the direction of the calls. Old River continues chewing, slow and steady. He's heard the monkeys many times before. They mean no threat. The pups take their cue from him and return to grazing, learning through presence, learning through calm. As the sun climbs, the air grows warmer. Heat shimmers across the water, blurring the line between river and sky. The wetlands smell of sun-warmed plants and damp soil. The day becomes thick and humid. The capybaras slowly make their way back into the water. One pup hesitates at the edge. The slope is a bit steeper here, and the river deeper. The water below looks darker than usual. Darkness often suggests mystery, and for a young capybara, mystery is both exciting and intimidating. Old River turns and looks back. He does not push. He does not lead. He waits. The pup studies him, ears flicking. Silence passes, soft and comfortable, like a held breath. Then, with a tiny squeak, the pup steps forward and glides into the deeper water. The river accepts it gently, carrying it alongside the others. Confidence is born not from instruction, but from example. The capybaras drift together, bobbing like small islands. Their fur repels water, forming tiny droplets that bead and roll off. Their bodies float naturally, dense in the center, buoyant at the surface. When they paddle, they hardly disturb the water. They become part of it. A soft rustle breaks the peace. On the far bank, a family of coatis emerges, noses sniffing, tails held high. They rummage through the mud, searching for insects and berries, occasionally pausing to glance curiously at the capybaras. The capybaras watch them with mild interest. Coatis are neighbors, not competition. The wetlands are full of quiet agreements. Capybaras do not claim territory. They do not fight over food. They do not hoard resources. They simply exist within what the world provides. The river widens as it turns, revealing a stretch where sun and water meet in perfect harmony. Water lilies bloom on the surface, their white petals opening as the morning light touches them. Capybaras glide among them, brushing stems gently aside with their broad muzzles. A dragonfly lands on the nose of a young capybara. The pup crosses its eyes, trying to look at it. After a moment, the dragonfly takes off, its wings catching the sunlight like shards of glass. The pup sneezes, a tiny squeaky sound that ripples through the quiet. Old River huffs softly, amused. Not in the human sense of humor, but in contentment. Capybaras show affection not with smiles, but with stillness. As the day continues, clouds gather in the distance. Darker this time, heavier. The rainy season has been approaching slowly, but now the change is close enough to taste on the breeze. The first drops fall, slow, fat, warm. They land on the capybara's fur and roll off like beads of mercury. The pups lift their heads to feel the rain more fully. Rain means deeper rivers, softer ground, new places to explore. The rain grows stronger. Waterfalls begin pouring from the edges of leaves. Ripples spread outward across the river, catching the rain on their surface. The world becomes a painting, textured and alive. Capybaras do not seek shelter. They welcome the rain like an old friend. The pups splash, kicking water into the air, trying to catch drops on their tongues. The adults remain still, enjoying the cooling touch. Rain is not an interruption. It is nourishment. It restores the wetlands, fills the ponds, refreshes the grass. The storm passes as quickly as it came. The world emerges brighter and cleaner. The air smells of wet earth and new beginnings. The capybaras move to a bank now softened by the rain. The pups slide down the slope, tumbling into a muddy pool. They play without restraint, rolling and squirming. Mud splashes everywhere. Adults join in, not because they feel obligated, but because capybaras enjoy life without reservation. Mud cools their skin. It protects against insects. It smells like the earth itself. The family basks, coated in brown. The pups looking like lumpy little potatoes with legs. Old River rests on his side, belly pressed into the cool mud. His eyes close again. When he sleeps, it is never fully. His ears remain alert, rotating gently toward even the faintest sound. Capybaras live in a world with predators, but they do not live in fear. They live in awareness. Nearby, the youngest pup curls against his side, drifting into sleep. The pup's breathing synchronizes with his, slow, deep, steady. A breeze moves across the wetlands, carrying the calming scent of rain. The grasses sway. A distant thunder rolls, not threatening, just atmospheric. Time moves differently for the capybaras. It does not rush them forward. It invites them deeper into each moment. The sky clears entirely by late afternoon. The sun returns filtered through fresh clouds. Light dances across the river in brilliant streaks. A pair of turtles climb onto a rock near the capybaras. Capybaras shift only slightly, making room without hesitation. Space is not something they guard. They share it freely. The turtles settle beside them, blinking slowly. Morning becomes afternoon. The wetlands hum like a living heartbeat. Later, with bellies full, the capybaras return to the trees and settle. Once more in a resting pile, fur touching fur, warmth shared without thought. Old River looks across the wetlands, eyes half closed, fur matted from rain. He breathes deeply, allowing the cool earth beneath him to support his weight. The pups breathe softly against him. Nothing is urgent. Nothing is missing. The world is enough, and so are they. The day stretches onward, warm and slow. Afternoon light filters through the leaves above, painting shifting patterns on the resting capybaras. Every so often, one shifts, adjusting against another. A quiet sigh, a soft grunt. But overall, stillness remains. Time passes like water flowing over smooth stone, unnoticed, steady, gentle. Old River's eyes remain half closed, but his mind remains connected to the world. He knows the songs of the wetlands intimately, the buzz of insects, the whisper of tall grass rubbing together, the distant splash of a fish breaking the surface. Nothing escapes his awareness, not because he searches for it, but because he's present for it. The pups begin to stir from their nap. One blinks sleepily, standing on wobbly legs, fur ruffled like tufts of wet grass. Another pup nibbles Old River's ear, encouraging him to play. The old capybara responds not with energy, but with patience. He nudges the young one gently, a gesture that says, "I am here. you are safe. The sunlight softens further, turning warmer and more golden. Shadows lengthen across the riverbank. The world begins to shift into late afternoon. Far across the water, an anhinga stands on a low tree branch, wings outstretched to dry. Its feathers are dark and sleek, dripping from a recent dive. It watches the capybaras with mild interest. The capybaras watch back, equally relaxed. Even in moments of curiosity, movement remains minimal. One of the pups wanders toward the bird, stopping just short of the water's edge. The anhinga closes its wings and dives into the water with a fluid plunge. The pup startles, then squeaks in surprise. Old River emits a low whistle, not of alarm, but reassurance. The pup relaxes. Even a moment of uncertainty becomes a learning experience, softened by calm leadership. The family resumes grazing. The group spreads out, each one following the gentle rise of the riverbank to find the freshest shoots. Capybaras have mastered the slow art of selective grazing, clipping just the tops of grasses, allowing plants to regrow quickly. Their presence shapes the ecosystem, encouraging new growth. They are not conquerors of their environment. They are caretakers. The breeze shifts direction, carrying a faint scent of guava from a nearby grove. One of the young adults lifts her head and sniffs. The scent is inviting, sweet, ripe, full of possibility. She begins moving toward it, and soon the others follow. The grove is a short walk away, only a few meters. But for capybaras, even walking is done without urgency. Their heavy bodies sway slightly side to side, feet spreading wide with each step. Their movements are not clumsy. They are conservative, efficient, deliberate. In the grove, fallen fruit lies scattered across the ground like small suns. Birds have pecked some open already, but plenty remain untouched. The capybaras approach and begin to nibble gently. The sweet juice drips from the fruit and mixes with the damp earth. A pup bites into a guava, surprised by the burst of flavor. She makes a small noise, a quick, high-pitched chirp, then immediately reaches for another. Her siblings see the reaction and begin to mimic her enthusiasm. Soon the grove fills with soft munching sounds. Old River eats a single fruit, slowly. He prefers grass and finds comfort in the familiar, yet he allows the younger ones their discovery. In the trees above, a troop of squirrel monkeys moves through the branches, playing a parallel game of exploration. Their tiny hands grasp and release fruit with ease, tails balancing them like acrobats. They chatter excitedly, curious about the capybaras below. One monkey drops a piece of fruit near a pup on purpose, perhaps inviting interaction. The pup picks up the fruit and looks up, unsure. The monkey chirps and hops to the next branch. Two species sharing a moment without language, without expectation. When the group finishes eating, they return to the riverbank to graze again, cleansing their palates with crisp greens. The pups roll in the grass, rubbing fruit juice from their muzzles. One pup tries to groom another, nibbling clumsily at its fur. The gesture is sloppy, imprecise, but affectionate. Social grooming strengthens bonds, reduces tension, and reinforces group unity. It is the heartbeat of capybara society. The sun lowers further. Golden hour begins. The river becomes a mirrored ribbon of orange and gold, shimmering with every small ripple. Insects hover above the surface, wings illuminated like tiny lanterns. The capybaras return to the water, slipping in with barely a splash. They float, side by side, noses exposed, ears flicking lazily. Their fur darkens as droplets soak into it. Their eyes soften, expressions relaxed. Water slows the world, muffles sound, carries weight. Here, they move like reeds in the breeze, effortlessly. A soft rumble of distant thunder echoes across the horizon. A second storm is forming, but for now, the air remains warm and still. The pups paddle playfully, chasing the reflections of clouds. Old River swims to deeper water and allows himself to drift. The younger capybaras gather around him instinctively, forming a constellation of brown shapes that bob on the river's surface. The river narrows further downstream, creating gentle currents that nudge their bodies slowly forward. None resist the movement. They surrender to the flow. As they float, the world continues to unfold around them. A large fish, likely a dorado, jumps from the water with a flash of silver. A lone egret stands near a submerged log, patient and still, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The capybaras pass like ghosts of the river, silent, unthreatening, completely at ease. Minutes pass, then hours. It is evening now, the sun hanging just above the horizon. The sky blazes in shades of pink and orange, cloud edges glowing. A flock of ibises flies overhead, forming shifting patterns like a slow-moving wave. They call to one another, wings catching the last of the light. The capybaras drift to a small peninsula of grass, their chosen resting spot for the evening. They climb out and shake their bodies in unison. Water droplets spray in all directions, catching the fading light like a shower of diamonds. The pups shake themselves too, though far less effectively, fur still clinging to moisture. They settle into the grass. Old River lowers himself first, sprawling his heavy body across the soft earth. The others follow, forming a warm cluster around him. Fur presses to fur. Heads rest on backs. Legs tuck beneath bodies. Capybaras form sleeping piles not for warmth, but for comfort. Connection is the central pillar of their lives. Night returns slowly. The first stars appear, faint in the purple sky. The air cools again, soft and gentle. The wetlands grow quiet, except for the distant buzz of insects and the occasional splash of water. As the pups drift towards sleep, Old River remains watchful. His eyes open just enough to monitor movement. Every sound is catalogued, evaluated not with panic, but with acceptance. Capybaras do not fear life. They participate in it. A breeze moves through the grass, carrying the soft scent of wet soil. Somewhere, a nightjar calls, a melodic rolling song. Fireflies return, bobbing lightly above the fields, tracing glowing patterns in the darkness. The pups sleep. The adults close their eyes. Old River remains awake just a little longer. He gazes out over the river, where the moonlight dances upon the surface in small, gentle waves. He does not think of tomorrow. He does not replay the events of the day. He simply exists, breathing with the rhythm of the world. Eventually, he rests his head. The river moves, the stars shift, and the night holds them. Hours later, soft light touches the horizon once more. The sky shifts to pale violet, then to warm blue. Birds begin their morning calls, woodpeckers tapping, parrots screeching joyfully, macaws echoing across the wetlands. The capybaras stir. The cycle continues, gentle and predictable. They rise, they stretch, they graze. But today, something different awaits. Far upstream, new currents rush through the riverbed. During the night, heavy rainfall in the mountains has sent a surge of water toward the wetlands. The river deepens rapidly, creating new pools and temporary channels. The landscape is changing. The capybaras sense it immediately. Not with stress, not with concern, simply with awareness. To them, change is not a disruption. It is part of the rhythm. They gather at the water's edge, watching as new pathways form. Places where land becomes mud, mud becomes water, and familiar ground dissolves into something new. Old River steps into the deepening water first. The others follow without hesitation. Together, they drift toward the expanding wetlands, exploring freshly formed trails. They paddle silently through submerged grass, weaving around floating debris. The world unfolds like a map written in real time. Water smooths over everything. Trees partially submerged create small islands, places to rest, to breathe, to simply exist. The pups chase fish that dart through the shallow pools. The adults graze on floating vegetation. Old River guides them steadily, navigating the new terrain without any sense of worry. The river gives. The capybaras receive. Eventually, they reach a shallow patch of land where the grass is long and untouched. The family climbs ashore and begins to graze. The grass here tastes different, fresh, sweeter, full of minerals pulled from the newly exposed soil. The pups chew loudly. The adults chew slowly. Time stretches once again. A pair of marsh deer emerges from the tall reeds nearby, their hooves sinking gently into the wet ground. They glance toward the capybaras. The capybaras glance back. Both groups continue grazing. Coexistence without conflict. The wetlands are full of relationships like this, simple, quiet agreements, where no creature takes more than they need. Day moves into afternoon. Afternoon into evening. And once again, the capybaras return to the water to float, to drift, to surrender. Old River guides his family to their nightly resting place. The pups curl against him, their breaths slow. Stillness settles over the wetlands. The world becomes soft and silent and full. And the capybaras, without effort, without urgency, become the embodiment of peace. Night returns as softly as an exhale. The air cools, humming with gentle life. Crickets begin their steady chorus, filling the darkness with a rhythm that seems to rock the wetlands to sleep. The moon reflects on the surface of the water, turning the river into a silver ribbon that slips through the grasslands like a quiet dream. The capybaras settle into their nightly pile once more, shaped by instinct and affection. Fur pressed against fur, bodies curved to follow one another's warmth. They sleep, not in isolation, but in connection, anchored to one another. Old River rests at the center. The pups pressed around him like small pebbles, gathered at the base of a smooth stone. But tonight, the world has plans of its own. A muffled rustling echoes from the far side of the riverbank. The sound does not carry urgency, only movement. The grass parts slowly as a large tapir emerges from the dark. The tapir's nose explores the air, searching for the scent of ripe fruit. Its presence is calm, harmless, almost dreamlike. The capybaras do not move. Old River opens one eye slightly, observes, and closes it again. Trust is not naivety. It is wisdom. The tapir wanders a few meters away and continues grazing in silence. The shared stillness becomes something tangible, a shared peace between species that do not need to understand each other to coexist. The night deepens. Clouds roll gently across the sky, veiling and unveiling stars in shifting patterns. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hoots, low and resonant, echoing against the water. A gentle breeze ripples across the surface of the river, carrying the scent of fresh mud and growing vegetation. A pup stirs lightly, its small ear twitching at the distant sound. It nuzzles closer to Old River, who responds with a soft rumble, not quite awake, not quite asleep. His reassurance is enough. The pup relaxes once more. Hours pass. The moon crosses the sky, trailing silver light behind it. The wetlands breathe. The grass sways. Water laps softly at the bank, as if whispering lullabies to the sleeping world. Then, a shift. The distant sound of hooves on wet ground. Heavy, slow, purposeful. Buffalo. A herd approaches the riverbank, their silhouettes large and dark against the moonlit horizon. They move to drink, lowering their massive heads toward the water. The capybaras listen, ears turning in their direction. Old River lifts his head slightly. He watches, he waits, and he stays still. This herd has passed through before. The buffalo drink, wade, and eventually settle nearby, lying down in the cool mud. They exhale deeply, long, slow breaths that resonate through the ground. The capybaras remain undisturbed. Here, peace is not the absence of other creatures. It is the acceptance of them. One buffalo shifts, hooves squelching in mud. A pup leans closer to an adult for comfort, but Old River gives no signal of concern. The pup mimics him. The world teaches anxiety. The capybara teaches calm. Dawn approaches. The sky fades from deep indigo to soft violet. Mist rises from the river, drifting across the capybaras like a cool veil. Dew forms on their fur, tiny droplets catching the fragile morning light. Old River rises first, stretching slowly. The pups follow his lead, yawning, noses wrinkling adorably. The family moves toward a patch of fresh grass uncovered by receding nighttime water levels. They graze. The world brightens around them, colors saturating little by little. A flock of macaws passes overhead, their feathers vivid blues, reds, and yellows. They chatter loudly, unbothered by their own volume. Their presence is a reminder of the contrast that shapes these wetlands. Some animals live loudly. Capybaras live softly. Old River chooses a spot near the river's edge and eats with slow, deliberate bites. Water drips from his chin. One pup, still sleepy, climbs onto his back and sprawls out like a lazy passenger aboard a calm ship. Old River does not object. He has carried countless pups in his lifetime, some biological, some not. Family, to capybaras, is not determined by blood. It is defined by presence. Across the water, long-legged storks wade through the shallows, searching for fish. Their movements are precise, calculated. A young stork attempts a strike and misses, splashing water into the air. It puffs its feathers in frustration. The pup on Old River's back chirps in amusement. He watches, learning not through words, but through observation. After grazing, the capybaras return to the water, not because they must, but because the river is where they feel most themselves. The surface is glassy and pale in the morning light. The family enters together, sinking slowly until only their heads remain above the water. They float. They relax. They exist. A soft humming rolls through the water. Communication between them. Low-frequency vibrations transfer through the river, allowing the capybaras to sense each other's locations, even with eyes closed. They speak through sensation. Not all communication needs to be heard. The pups swim in slow circles around the adults, practicing small dives. Their bodies move with the natural rhythm of the water, uncoordinated yet enthusiastic. They disappear beneath the surface, reappearing with tiny snorts of pride. Old River watches, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. A young adult swims beside him and nudges his cheek with her nose. Affection, gratitude, a quiet moment of connection. Nothing is spoken. Everything is understood. The day warms quickly. The sun climbs higher, casting heat onto the wetlands. Dragonflies return, skimming along the water's surface. Their wings catch the light, leaving trails of shimmer behind them. The capybaras move to deeper water, letting the coolness absorb the heat from their bodies. Fish swim beneath them, brushing lightly against their legs. Occasionally a pup tries to chase one, but the fish are far too quick. Old River closes his eyes, drifting in the slow current. His breath deepens. For a moment, time seems to stop. The world narrows to the sound of ripples, the feeling of water holding him, and the steady warmth of family nearby. In these moments, he is not leader, not protector, just another being carried by the flow of the world. A reminder: life does not always require effort. Sometimes it simply requires surrender. Later, clouds gather overhead, thick and silver. Rain again. Small droplets become steady precipitation, and the riverbank softens. The pups splash in the puddles forming around them. Their joy is explosive but never disruptive. Nature encourages play, not noise. The rain intensifies. Old River leads them beneath a group of trees where the leaves form a natural canopy. Rain trickles down in gentle streams, falling onto the pups' noses. They drink the droplets eagerly. The world smells new. Wet earth, fresh grass, cool water. The rain softens, then stops entirely, leaving the air crisp and still. The capybaras emerge from beneath the trees, their fur heavy with droplets. They shake themselves vigorously, sending tiny showers into the air. The pups roll in the wet grass, squeaking as they chase one another. Old River returns to the water. He sinks into the coolness, lowering his heavy body until he floats. His eyes soften. His breathing slows. He drifts. He is at peace. One of the younger adults swims up beside him. She nudges him gently, a gesture of affection. He turns his head, and grooming begins. Small, gentle nibbles along the fur. This act is more than grooming. It is connection, care, gratitude. Capybaras groom those they love. As grooming ends, the young adult rests her head against his shoulder, a gesture that means, "You are part of me." The afternoon heat passes lazily. The capybaras alternate grazing and drifting. Time is fluid. Movement is optional. A gentle breeze stirs the reeds. A caiman surfaces nearby, eyes like polished stones. It watches silently. Old River watches back. No panic, only presence. The caiman lingers a moment, then sinks beneath the surface and disappears. The capybaras remain unbothered. They knew they were safe before danger appeared. The secret of their calm is simple. Fear does not protect. Awareness does. The sun begins to set, warming the sky with gold, then orange, then deep red. Shadows stretch across the wetlands. The pups play one last time, chasing the insects drawn to the fading light. Their squeaks blend with the distant call of evening birds. The capybaras gather again in their nightly formation. Fur against fur, warmth against warmth. Breathing slows. The wetlands breathe with them. Old River watches the horizon. Colors fade into dusk. The first star appears. He lowers his head. The world softens, and once again, peace holds them all. Night drapes itself over the wetlands like a soft velvet curtain. The air is warm but gentle, shaped by quiet breezes that move through the tall reeds and ripple across the river. In the darkness, the surface of the water becomes a mirror, reflecting the moon with a clarity that turns everything still. Ripples appear only when fish break the surface or when the breeze stirs the water. Beside the riverbank, the capybaras rest. Old Rivers lies curled with his family, their bodies forming a loose circle, overlapping gently like stones arranged by a stream. Their breathing is slow and even. The pups sleep closest to him, comforted by the rhythm of his heartbeat. There is no fear of tomorrow, no dwelling on yesterday, only the safety of now. Across the river, lightning flickers silently on the horizon, not a storm, but distant heat lightning, illuminating the landscape for a fraction of a second at a time. The wetlands flash silver, then fall back into darkness. The pups stir, but do not wake. Old River opens an eye slightly, watching the horizon. His gaze is soft, thoughtful in its own quiet way. He does not worry. He simply observes. The lightning fades. Silence returns. A cool mist settles over the grass, clinging to fur in soft beads. The pups begin to twitch in their sleep, paws moving as though they are swimming through dreams. A soft squeak escapes one of them, and Old River gently shifts to place his muzzle near the pup's head. Reassurance without waking, calm without interruption. The pups slow their motions, their breathing deepening into true rest. Hours slip by, unnoticed. Eventually, the stars pale and the eastern sky brightens. Not quickly, slowly, like watercolor spreading across paper. Dawn. Birdsong begins, faint at first. A single voice breaking the silence, then another, then dozens. A slow crescendo. Old River raises his head as the rest of the group remains sleeping. He inhales deeply, nostrils flaring slightly, taking in the scent of wet grass and fresh day. The horizon glows. A new morning. One of the younger adults stretches, jaw opening wide in a slow yawn, revealing large flat teeth designed for grinding. She rises and shakes her body, water droplets flying from her fur and catching the new sunlight. The pups wake next, nudging one another playfully, as if every morning brings a brand new life. Capybaras stretch like cats, long and slow, backs arching slightly. There is no rush to begin grazing. The first part of their day is simply spent awakening, feeling the earth beneath their feet again, reconnecting with water and sky. Old River leads them gently toward a patch of fresh grass glistening with dew. The pups hurry forward, eager. The adults follow at a measured pace, chewing slowly. Each blade of grass tells a story. Soaked overnight in dew, warmed by sunlight, the capybaras nibble. The world wakes. A pair of roseate spoonbills lands in the shallows nearby. Their feathers blush pink against the pale morning light. They sweep their beaks through the water, sifting for small aquatic creatures. Their movements are rhythmic, coordinated. The capybaras pause their grazing to watch them. For a moment, both species exist without agenda, simple observers of the dawn. The sky turns fully blue, and morning warms. Insects buzz lazily. A caiman sunbathes on a rock further up the river, eyes closed, limbs loose. Even predators take time to soak in warmth. Nothing in nature rushes. Nothing forces. Old River grazes until he is satisfied, then lifts his head and steps into the river once more. The water greets him like an old friend, cool and familiar. One by one, the others follow. The pups splash in excitement, sending droplets high into the air. The adults sink deeper, allowing the current to hold their weight. They float. Time becomes weightless. The water is their refuge, a perfect equilibrium between effort and rest. Their bodies drift gently, noses barely breaking the surface, eyes half closed as they surrender to buoyancy. In the water, Old River transforms. Here, his age is irrelevant. His joints do not ache. His weight does not burden him. Water carries what land cannot. He closes his eyes completely, trusting the river and the family around him. The pups swim in spirals, some attempting to mimic the graceful diving of river otters they once watched from afar. Their efforts are clumsy at best, but their enthusiasm is boundless. Old River lets the current push him, drifting slowly toward a shaded area beneath overhanging branches. Algae sway gently beneath his feet. Fish dart around his legs, unafraid. Capybaras, though large, are gentle presences. They do not disturb nature. They fit into it. The pups approach him, bumping into his side, eager for play. He opens one eye but does not move. A subtle rumble vibrates deep in his chest. A soft acknowledgement. Play if you wish. I am here. The pups take this as permission and begin circling him, swimming around in figure-8 patterns. One climbs onto his back and rides like a passenger on a living raft. Old River continues drifting without effort. The morning passes in gentle rhythm. Float. Greys float again. The sun climbs, heating the world. Capybaras move to the cool shade beneath trees. Beneath the dense canopy, the grass remains fresh and green. Some settle to eat, others lie down to rest. A capybara pup presses its cheek against an adult's side and begins grooming, nibbling gently, removing bits of debris from the fur. The older capybara responds by grooming back, nibbling gently at the pup's ear. Bonding, connection, affection expressed through touch. Social grooming is more than hygiene. It is communication, silent and profound. Old River lies on his side, eyes closed. A butterfly lands on his fur, resting on the warm surface. He does not move. Even the smallest creature finds peace in his stillness. A gentle breeze passes through the grove. The world feels like it is breathing. In the early afternoon, clouds gather again. The rainy season promises frequent showers, short but intense. The air changes, cooler, metallic. Lightning flashes far away. Thunder rumbles. But the storm is slow to arrive, leaving the world in an in-between state, filled with anticipation, but not urgency. Old River rises and leads the family to higher ground. Not far, just enough to avoid the thickest mud. The pups follow closely, sometimes stumbling on tangled roots, sometimes stopping to inspect beetles scurrying past, learning through curiosity, learning without fear. Thunder rolls closer now. The wind shifts direction. The first droplets fall, soft at first, then steadier. The rain grows heavier, soaking everything. The capybaras stand still as their fur darkens, water rolling from their coats. They close their eyes. They welcome the rain. In the downpour, the world becomes muffled. Leaves tremble. The river churns with small ripples. The air becomes rich with the scent of wet clay and new growth. The pups huddle close to Old River's side. He stays steady, still, calm. He lets the rain wash over him without concern. They learn calm from him the way plants learn sunlight. The storm passes. Rain softens into mist. The wetlands breathe again. Every surface glistens. Dripping leaves. saturated earth. The river now running slightly higher than before. The capybaras move to the freshly soaked grass and begin grazing once more. The pups nibble eagerly, delighted by the soft texture and sweet flavor of rain-washed blades. In the distance, a whistling call rises, long descending. Capybaras freeze for just a moment. A capybara from another group. This call means discovery, not danger. Old River responds with a soft bark, a greeting. Soon, a small group emerges from the tall grass. 3 juveniles and an adult female. They move with the same unhurried grace. The 2 groups approach each other cautiously but calmly. Capybaras are social beyond their immediate families. Groups merge and separate fluidly. There is no territorial aggression. Instead, they sniff. They groom. They accept. New young capybaras join the play, splashing in puddles, chasing the pups in gentle circles. One slips, rolls into mud, and squeaks with surprise. The others squeak in return, laughter, in capybara language. Old River watches. He has seen countless pups grow, learn, and move on to form families of their own. Some stay, some wander. All are part of something bigger. Life flows. The sun begins to set again, casting long shadows across the water. The river glows orange. Grass sways. Birds return to their nests. The capybaras form their evening pile once more. Warmth shared between bodies. The newly joined capybaras settle in naturally, as though they have always belonged. Old River rests his head. His breathing slows. The river murmurs, and night falls gently over them, wrapping the wetlands in silence. Night settles once again over the wetlands. The air is warm, the river still. Above, the moon drifts between thin clouds, dimming and brightening in slow motion. The capybaras lie together in an unbroken pile of fur and gentle breaths, forming one continuous shape, a circle of safety. Old River rests with his head low, his eyes half closed. The new juveniles that joined them earlier in the day sleep nearby, already comfortable with the group. There is no initiation, no hesitation. Capybaras accept, simply because acceptance is easier than judgment. The night insects hum softly, weaving layers of sound into the stillness. A nightjar calls from somewhere in the distance, its melodic whir echoing across the marsh. Fireflies return, blinking in slow patterns like tiny floating stars. But beneath the calm surface, change is brewing. The river is swelling. Rain has fallen for days in the distant mountains, and now the runoff travels downstream. The water level rises slowly but steadily, creeping toward where the capybaras sleep. Old River feels the subtle shift before he sees it. Water touches the edges of their sleeping nest. It soaks into the soil. The earth beneath them darkens. Old River lifts his head and inhales. This is not danger. It is movement, and movement is part of their world. One pup awakens, tiny ears twitching as water laps softly at its side. It squeaks in surprise and presses closer to Old River. He nudges it gently, reassuring, the vibration of his low rumble spreading through the group like a blanket. The water rises. Old River stands. The others follow without question, waking slowly, stretching, blinking the night from their eyes. They move together toward higher ground, not rushed, not alarmed. Their pace remains slow. To capybaras, change does not require panic, only response. By the time the moon dips lower, the capybaras have settled on a new patch of earth, a dry mound surrounded by shallow water. The group forms another resting cluster, bodies pressed together for comfort. The water continues rising. The wetland reshapes itself, swallowing old pathways and carving new ones. The river becomes a temporary lake, stretching farther than the capybaras have ever seen. They remain together. They rest again. The pups nestle close, drifting back into sleep. The water laps gently beneath them, rhythmic and serene. Hours pass. At dawn, the wetlands have been transformed. The world that existed yesterday lies beneath the reflection of clouds. Where grass once flourished, a silver expanse of water now stretches. But capybaras do not mourn what has changed. They adapt. Old River wades into the new waters first, testing its depth. The younger ones follow, paddling around him. The juveniles, those not born to the group but welcomed into it, swim comfortably nearby. They drift like small boats, noses just above the surface. The sun rises. The water glows gold. The family travels through their expanded world. Where land once blocked their path, water now opens the way. They swim with calm strokes, fully at home in this shifting landscape. A heron joins them briefly, gliding across the surface before rising into the air with a flap of enormous wings. Dragonflies skim along the water, leaving trails like tiny comets. The pups follow the dragonflies, squeaking excitedly. They chase the flickering light, but the insects dance just out of reach. Eventually, the pups give up and float on their backs, tiny paws raised. Old River looks on. The world does not need to be conquered for it to be enjoyed. As they drift, a new scent travels on the wind, earthy and sweet, carried from the direction of the flooded plain. Water lilies. Old River turns toward the scent, leading the family. As they approach, the lilies come into view, wide leaves floating on the surface, crowned with delicate white and pink flowers. The water plants offer shade and shelter, and food. The capybaras begin feeding quietly, nibbling the tender stems and leaves. The water supports their weight. They do not need to stand. They simply drift and graze, like gentle river spirits feeding on the earth's offerings. The pups discover the flowers. One pup bites the edge of a lily and sneezes as a drop of water splashes onto its nose. Another grabs a blossom and attempts to eat it whole, ending up with petals stuck to its whiskers. Old River resumes chewing, slow as always. Nap, eat, float. This is the cycle. This is peace. The river carries them deeper into the flooded wetlands, revealing parts of the world they have never seen. A fallen tree lies half submerged, rich with moss. Several turtles sun themselves along its length. They blink lazily at the approaching capybaras, uninterested in moving. Capybaras climb around them without confrontation. Sharing is a natural state. The pups climb onto the log, slipping and splashing. One sits triumphantly on a flat part of the trunk and chirps proudly. The adults float beneath them, keeping watch from the water. Old River rests his head on the log and closes his eyes. Stillness returns. Hours pass. By mid-morning, the sky shifts. Heavy clouds mass overhead, darker than the early showers of the past days. Lightning flashes, closer this time, followed by thunder that rolls over the water like distant drums. The pups startle. Old River remains motionless. His stillness is contagious. The pups settle. Rain falls again, stronger than before. Sheets of water descend, blurring the horizon and turning the surface of the floodplain into a shimmer of ripples and rings. Capybaras do not seek shelter. They accept the rain as part of their world. Their fur, dense and oily, repels water. Droplets gather on their coats, forming tiny beads that slide off like liquid glass. Rain cools them, soothes them, hides their scent from predators who might linger nearby. The water level rises further. The flooded plain becomes deeper. The capybaras drift in the storm, buoyed by the river's expansion. The pups stay near the adults, instinctively forming a loose circle. The water moves around them with gentle strength, but not with force. Capybaras do not fight currents. They flow with them. Eventually, the rain weakens. Sunlight begins to pierce the clouds in soft white beams, illuminating the flooded landscape. The storm moves downstream, leaving behind a world washed clean. The river smells of new beginnings. The pups splash again in renewed joy, their earlier fear forgotten. They leap into muddy shallows, roll in silt, and paddle with abandon. Old River watches. He does not intervene. Growth requires experience, not protection. In the shallows, the family grazes on plants that were unreachable before the flood. Drowned grasses float to the surface, offering tender bites, a fresh abundance. Nature gives without hesitation, and capybaras take only what they need. The storm, however, has changed more than the water level. Predators move differently after rain. Downstream, the surface breaks. A caiman's eyes emerge, slowly, deliberately. The adults sense it before the pups do, not through sound, but intuition. The water has changed direction, subtly swirling in a pattern that was not present before. Old River's nostrils flare. His head rises. He emits a single, low bark. The group forms immediately, adults surrounding pups, moving closer together. They do not panic. They do not bolt. They simply shift into safety. The caiman watches. It approaches slowly, cutting the water like a dark fin. But the group is alert. They are in open water. They have room to escape. Old River holds still. The caiman stops. For several breaths, predator and prey regard one another in silence. Instead of lunging, the caiman turns. It slips beneath the surface and disappears into deeper water, choosing a path of less resistance. Tension releases. The capybaras do not cheer. They resume grazing. For capybaras, danger is not a story. It is a moment. It passes, and life goes on. Later, when the world calms again, the family moves toward a piece of land newly revealed by the shifting waters. Here, grass grows across a gentle slope leading up to a dry patch of earth. Old River climbs onto it first. The others follow. They graze, then lie down, forming a familiar resting pile, softened by the day's movement. The pups curl around Old River like small, warm stones. The sun lowers, shadows stretch, the sky deepens into coral and rose. The world grows quiet. Old River looks across the wetland once more, at the water that rose, the land that shifted, the paths that changed. His breath slows. He does not think of the world before the flood. He does not worry about the world after it. He simply exists in the world now. The wind sweeps across the water, cooling their fur. Night settles once more, and the capybaras, wrapped in each other's warmth, surrender to sleep. The night is warm and windless. The moon hangs low in the sky, casting soft reflections across the receding floodwaters. The surface ripples just slightly, touched by the faintest breath of a breeze. Insects hum and frogs trill in persistent, gentle rhythm. The wetland's own lullaby. The capybaras sleep, Old River lies in the center of the pile, his body sheltering the youngest pups. Their tiny paws twitch from dreams, rhythmic and uncontrolled, as though they are paddling through imaginary water. Now and then, one lets out a tiny chirp, a half-formed squeak muffled by drowsiness. The night holds them, safe, connected, unhurried. The world around them moves, always, but they move only when it calls for them. Their lives unfold like the river, steady, changing only by degrees. Far across the water, fireflies drift in slow arcs, rising and falling like embers from an invisible fire. In the distance, the soft hoots of owls blend with the chirping chorus of crickets. Hours pass like minutes. Eventually, the horizon lightens, slowly, almost reluctantly. Night loosens its hold. The sky turns silvery blue, then lavender. The pups stir. One lifts its head and yawns so wide that its tiny incisors show. It blinks at the soft glow on the horizon, the arrival of dawn. Then it nuzzles deeper against Old River's fur. Capybaras do not wake abruptly. They drift into wakefulness. The adults rise one by one, stretching long legs, shaking off night moisture. They breathe deeply, inhaling the sense of morning, wet earth, river sediment, the faint sweetness of newly sprouted grass. Old River rises last. He stands, his fur still damp from nighttime humidity, and surveys the world with unhurried thought. Dew clings to every blade of grass, bending them toward the soil. The river has receded slightly from yesterday's high flood mark, revealing patches of soft mud and new sprouts just beginning to push through. The world offers something new every day, but only to those who slow down enough to notice. The capybaras graze among the fresh growth, their teeth clipping grasses in steady rhythm. A juvenile from the newly joined group grazes near Old River, mimicking his slow pace. The young one glances at him often, not asking questions, not seeking permission, only searching for presence. Old River chews, slow and steady. No need to lead, just be. The sun rises further. Light glitters across the dew-covered grass and the softly moving water. Birds begin their morning routines. A kingfisher dives, sending droplets into the air. A pair of ibises march through the mud, their long beaks probing for insects. The capybaras begin to migrate towards shallower water. Not as a decision, simply as instinct. The river is lower now than yesterday. The floodwaters pull away, revealing pathways and edges that had disappeared. Mud squelches beneath capybara feet, forming soft impressions, evidence of where they have been, soon to be washed away by another cycle of rain. The pups test the water first, splashing in with reckless joy. They paddle in circles, chasing the ripples they themselves make. The adults follow, gliding into deeper water. Floating again, always floating. Old River sinks slowly into the cool water. His legs hang downward, his body buoyant, supported by the river's ease. His eyes soften into half-closed slits. The current nudges him. He allows himself to drift. Peace is passive, not earned. The pups swim toward him, climbing onto his back. Their small paws grip at his fur. Old River doesn't move. He is a floating island, a constant, a foundation for the young. Nearby, schools of tiny fish swarm around their legs, nibbling for bits of algae. The pups try to catch them, snatching at them with enthusiastic bites. They fail every time. Failure means nothing to a capybara. Everything is play. Eventually, the family reaches a cluster of floating reeds thick with tender shoots. They begin feeding again. The reeds sway as they bite, snapping softly between capybara teeth. The younger adults drift into a patch of shallow water where sunlight pierces through, warming their backs. They flatten themselves against submerged vegetation, floating with only their nostrils visible above the surface. They become stillness. They become peace. Time stretches. A shadow passes overhead, broad wings gliding silently. A black hawk circles, scanning the shallow water for fish. The pups pause. The adults remain calm. The hawk continues on. Awareness, not fear. The sun climbs higher. Heat thickens in the air. Dragonflies hover above the water, wings shining like shards of glass. The pups chase them again, joyfully, yet without urgency. Always present, never striving. The adults swim to the shaded side of the riverbank. There, beneath an overhang of drooping branches, they begin grooming one another. Gentle nibbles, soft contact. Capybaras do not speak affection. They perform it. They groom the ones they trust. The pups groom clumsily, missing patches, nibbling air. But the adults accept every attempt. Love does not measure technique. A breeze moves through the trees. Leaves whisper against one another. The pups grow tired again and return to Old River, who has drifted to a place where the water is cool and deep. They climb atop him, resting their small bodies on his broad back. Their eyes droop. Here, no creature sleeps alone. Their heads rest on him as naturally as if the river designed him for that purpose. Old River lowers his head into the water, submerging everything but his nostrils. His breathing slows. His heart rate lowers. He floats in deep rest without losing awareness. Water holds what land cannot. Hours pass like moments. Eventually, the sun shifts, casting shorter shadows. The water warms. The breeze fades. The air becomes still again. Old River rises and steps out of the river. Droplets fall from his fur like falling beads. The pups slide off his back and tumble into the water, squeaking. The family moves toward a field exposed by receding water. Grass stands tall and untouched, fresh, green, rich. They graze. A group of small capuchin monkeys moves through the branches above, occasionally dropping bits of fruit. One piece lands near a pup, who tries to eat it and sneezes hard enough to startle itself. The adults don't react. Life is too precious to waste energy on surprise. The pups continue to explore. One finds a small stream cutting through the mud and sticks its face directly into the water, blowing bubbles. Another tries to imitate it, submerging its nose and immediately sneezing. Old River watches them, patient. Growth does not require instructions. It requires space. The sun begins to dip once again. Warm orange light stretches across the wetlands. The river's surface reflects the sky like glass. The capybaras gather. They move toward a new sleeping area, a patch of dry land surrounded on all sides by shallow water. This is intentional. Water is safety. Predators avoid deep water at night. Old River climbs onto the dry patch and the others follow. The pups wrestle gently before finally settling down among the adults. Fur presses against fur. Bodies curl into one another. Breathing synchronizes. Night falls. The stars return. And once more, the capybaras let the world hold them. A new dawn rises, soft and pale, like a quiet promise. Mist lingers over the water, stretching thin ribbons across the surface. The capybaras wake slowly, brushing against each other as they stretch their bodies. Dew clings to their fur in tiny, crystalline droplets. The pups yawn, mouths opening too wide for their small faces. Their eyes are heavy, their movements slow. The family rises one by one, but Old River remains still for a moment longer. He inhales deeply, moist air, fresh foliage, mud, water, the scent of home. He finally stands, shaking his body. Droplets fly outward, sparkling briefly in the rising light. The others follow, stepping into the water together, moving without hesitation or doubt. The river accepts them. They glide across the slow current, paddling in unison. Their movements are quiet, deliberate. Their bodies cut smooth trails through the water, ripples fading gently behind them. Capybaras are born to float. The pups take turns climbing onto the backs of adults. Sometimes they slip. Sometimes they fall backward with a splash. They surface squeaking, startled, then delighted. Their squeaks echo against the still morning air like small bells. Old River leads them deeper into the river channel. He does not do so with urgency, only intention. Today, something calls him downstream, an instinct without reason, a feeling more than a thought. Perhaps the river is changing again. Perhaps the land ahead holds new grasses, or cooler water or shade. The family follows. They always have. Along the riverbank, tall grasses bend under the weight of the early morning dew. Insects move slowly, still waking from the cool night. A butterfly drifts down and lands on Old River's nose. He blinks once. He could shake it off. Instead, he remains perfectly still. Nature finds peace in peace. The butterfly flutters away. The movement continues. The river widens, flattening into a shallow marsh. Water lilies float along the edges, green discs supporting white blossoms. The capybaras move through them, parting the vegetation with their rounded muzzles. A breeze picks up. Ripples move across the water. The family floats into the lilies, grazing lazily on the tender stems. The pups nibble everything, even the petals, discovering that some plants are sweet, others bitter. They experience the world through taste: grass, reeds, flowers, water. Old River grazes more slowly, grinding each bite carefully between his constantly growing molars. His movements are efficient, practiced. He chews with patience, savoring the soft texture of the new plants. The sun climbs higher. Light filters through the lily leaves, scattering patterns across their backs. The warmth spreads through their fur, lulling them into a restful drowsiness. The adults close their eyes and float in place. The pups practice diving, paddling their legs with more confidence than yesterday. Experience brings calm. Calm brings grace. After a while, Old River gently guides them toward land again. They emerge from the water and shake themselves, droplets scattering like rain. They graze once more, each choosing the patch that calls to them. A young adult grazes beside Old River, brushing against him ever so slightly. With capybaras, proximity is conversation. They speak without sound. The family spreads across the slope, finding the best greens. A pup nibbles grass, then stops suddenly, nose twitching. It looks up, staring at something unseen. A gentle shape moves through the reeds. A giant anteater. Its long snout sweeps the ground as it searches for termites. Its tail flows behind it like a feathered banner, dragging softly over the grass. It pays no attention to the capybaras. They watch it with quiet curiosity. No tension, no fear. The anteater lifts its head once, acknowledges their presence with a blink, and continues on. This place belongs to all of them. The wetlands are not a kingdom ruled. They are a home shared. The capybaras continue grazing. Eventually, they settle beneath a cluster of shade trees. The pups collapse into a pile of flattened grass, panting softly from their morning adventures. The adults lie around them, creating an outer ring, not formal, but natural. Safety through closeness. Old River lies down last, placing his body where he can feel the pups against him. He closes his eyes, not deeply, just enough to rest. Hours pass in quiet stillness. A gentle breeze brushes the landscape. Leaves shimmer faintly, scattering shade across the capybaras' backs. The pups drift into sleep. One dreams, paws twitching, nose wiggling, breath shaking as if swimming through imaginary currents. Old River shifts and presses a paw softly against the dreaming pup. It settles. Even asleep, he protects. The day warms. The afternoon brings heat. The capybaras return to the water, submerging themselves fully. They float for a long time, preserved by coolness. The river becomes a cradle again, floating, grazing, resting. The pattern repeats. Life does not need novelty to be meaningful. It needs presence. A pair of young capybaras drift a little farther out than the others, chasing fish and water insects. They splash, enthusiastic but clumsy. Old River turns slightly, paddling closer, not to restrict them, but to remain near. His presence is enough. Safety does not require confinement, only attention. The sun begins its descent, turning the wetlands gold again. Light reflects across the river like molten metal. Shadows stretch. Dragonflies hover, catching the light with their wings. The pups gather around Old River again, pressing against him with familiarity. They settle into their evening grazing. Movement slows, breathing deepens. But today, something shifts. Not in the river, not in the sky, in Old River. As he grazes, a moment of stillness overtakes him. He pauses. His breath slows. The world around him continues. Pups play, adults chew. But Old River bows his head and closes his eyes, feeling a heaviness that is deeper than fatigue. He steps toward the water, not with his usual steady stride, but slower, more deliberate. He lowers himself into the river. The current carries him gently, as it always has. The water supports him, eases the weight from his bones. He floats. But something is different. His strokes are weaker. His eyes remain closed. The pups follow him, climbing clumsily onto his back. One presses its nose against his cheek, expecting him to rumble or nuzzle in return. He does not. He floats a little farther, carried by the subtle pull of the current. The pups chirp, uncertain. The adults turn their heads. They swim toward him, surrounding him, forming a floating ring of protection. He exhales. Slow, soft, peaceful. Old River does not struggle. He does not resist. He simply lets go, like a fallen leaf carried downstream, like the river has always taught. The current guides him back to the edge of the reeds. The adults push gently against his side, guiding him to still water, as though helping him settle one final time into rest. The pups climb onto him again. They do not understand the difference. They press against him, waiting for warmth, waiting for movement. But his body is still, completely still. The adults nuzzle him quietly. There is no panic, no frantic sound, only quiet acceptance. In the animal world, grief is silent. Capybaras gather together, forming a circle around Old River's body. They remain close, grooming gently, pressing their heads to his, for a long time. As night approaches, the pups curl beside him. Eventually, the water carries him a few inches farther, so gently that it looks like he has simply drifted into deeper peace. The adults watch. They do not chase. They do not call. They stay together as the current takes Old River to the reeds, where he becomes part of the wetland he guided his family through for so many seasons. Even in his final moment, he flowed. He did not fight change. He trusted the water. The night settles. Stars appear one by one. The river moves, endless and calm. The capybaras return to their sleeping place, pressed close to one another, silent in their togetherness. Old River is gone, but his calm remains in them. They graze as he grazed. They float as he floated. They rest as he rested. They exist in peace, just as he taught. Night embraces the wetlands again. The river glows faintly under the moonlight, a shifting silver surface that remembers every ripple and every life that has passed through it. The capybaras sleep close together, forming a tight circle on a patch of soft ground. The pups sleep in the center, safe, warm, protected. But the pile feels different. One body is missing. The pups wake periodically, nudging an absence they cannot name. They chirp quietly, confused. A young adult presses her nose against them, offering warmth and reassurance. The group shifts slightly, instinctively filling the empty space. No one replaces Old River, but everyone carries him. The river murmurs in the background, moving steadily as always, taking memories downstream, leaving space for something new. Morning arrives slowly. Pale sunlight spreads across the water, warming the reeds. Birds sing, unaware of loss. The world does not pause for grief. The capybaras rise one by one. Their movements are slower than usual. They stretch, shake, blink through the remnants of sleep. A soft quiet hangs over the group. Not tension, not fear. Reflection. The pups look around for Old River. They sniff the air. One squeaks and trots along the riverbank, searching. A young adult follows, guiding the pup back toward the group with gentle nudges. Capybaras grieve the way water grieves. Silently, gradually, through presence, not pain. They gather near the water's edge, hesitant to enter. The surface is still. The world feels momentarily deeper, wider, unfamiliar. Then a young adult, perhaps the one closest to Old River, steps forward. She enters the water without rushing. She paddles slowly, deliberately, to the same shallow resting place where Old River used to float. She lowers herself into the cool water, letting it hold her. The others follow, not because they are led, but because they are connected. Soon, the group floats together, forming a loose circle on the river's surface. Their bodies drift, supported by the gentle current. They float not to travel. They float to remember. The pups play nearby, unsure why the adults are so still. One pup paddles toward the young adult and climbs onto her back, the place where Old River once carried him. She supports the small weight without hesitation. A new anchor, a new center. Change does not erase what came before. It continues it. As the sun rises higher, the river warms. The family drifts downstream, eventually reaching a familiar patch of reeds. They graze, though they graze more slowly. Chewing becomes meditation, grounding, rhythmic. The wetlands stretch out like an open page. Life continues. Around midday, a breeze sweeps across the water, carrying the soft scent of guava from distant groves. The pups perk up at the smell and begin wandering in that direction. The adults follow, not because they must, but because they choose to move together. Along the way, they pass the place where Old River used to rest in the afternoons. The grass there is flattened from years of his presence. No one lies there, not today. Instead, the family continues toward the grove. Fallen guava fruit lies scattered across the ground, touched by sunlight. The pups squeak in delight, rolling the fruit around with their noses. One pup takes a bite and sneezes as juice sprays onto its whiskers. The young adults begin grooming the pups, nibbling gently at their fur. Love expressed through touch. Trust expressed through closeness. The capybaras eat until full, then lie down in the grass. The young adult, the one who took the lead earlier, lies in the center. The pups press themselves against her. Leadership is not chosen. It is lived. She grooms them one by one, and the others groom her in return. Even without Old River, the instinct to gather remains. The instinct to care remains. The instinct to be together remains. Later, when the heat deepens, they return to the water again. The pups dive, practicing the floats and balances they learn from Old River. Their movements are clumsy but joyful. Somewhere beneath the surface of memory, his lessons continue. The river holds all things. Afternoon passes into evening. Light softens, turning the wetlands gold again. Dragonflies dance over the water. Fish leap, catching insects. The sky turns violet, then indigo. The capybaras drift as a group, forming a floating constellation. A heron lands nearby, its long legs breaking the surface of shallow water. It watches them with curiosity, head tilted. The young adult watches back. There is no fear, only awareness. The heron moves on. The river carries no tension. As night edges closer, stars appear one by one. The capybaras climb onto a dry patch of ground, a new one, not the same spot as yesterday. They settle into a resting pile. The young adult takes Old River's former position. The pups curl against her side. The others form a circle around them. They sleep. Night deepens, dreams rise. Old River is not gone from them. He is in the way they float without fear, in the way they graze without hurry, in the way they rest leaning on one another. Legacy is not memory. Legacy is practice. Dawn comes quietly the next day. The capybaras stretch into a new rhythm of life. They graze and float and explore with the same gentle curiosity. The young adult leads, not with authority, but with presence. She moves calmly. The group follows calmly. They graze along a hillside thick with fresh grass. They float through a stretch of reeds where dragonflies touch their whiskers. They travel to a new patch of earth where the sun warms their fur. And one by one, they grow into their roles. A pup climbs onto the young adult's back. She carries him with steady patience. The wetlands are full of life, full of cycles. Nothing is gone. Everything continues. Later, as the sun falls into evening, the family returns to the river once more. They settle into a perfect stillness, water lapping softly around them. One pup drifts slightly away, for a moment. He floats alone. He paddles in small circles, hesitant, unsure. Then, instinctively, he turns toward the deeper water and lets himself drift. Into current, into flow, into the same surrender Old River taught them all. He floats, small and determined, nose barely above the surface. The young adult watches. She swims to meet him, not to pull him back, but to float beside him. Beside him, she drifts, teaching him what Old River taught them. You do not push life, you let it carry you. Night returns, cool and gentle. The world slows. The capybaras gather on their sleeping patch, warm bodies pressed together once more. And as the stars rise above the river, shimmering like reflections of countless tiny ripples, the family breathes in quiet unity. Life moves forward, softly, steadily, like the river. And so, the night settles over the wetlands once more. The river moves quietly, carrying stories of the day into the darkness. The capybaras rest together, wrapped in warmth and comfort, knowing that tomorrow will arrive gently, just as today did. In their world, nothing is rushed. Nothing is forced. Each moment is enough. We leave them here, in peace, in stillness, in the soft embrace of the night, floating through life the way the river shows them how, simply letting go. May your thoughts drift as easily as the current. May your breathing slow, like the capybaras at rest. And may sleep come to you as gently as the river carries them onward. Good night.